I want to talk about what do you do when your healing is interrupted by your healing. um, and I'll read the meme that inspired that thought. This is from Notes from Your Therapist. The Instagram page profile is called Notes from Your Therapist. And all it is all these pictures of these notes, handwritten notes that are really wise and really helpful. And I forget the name of the lady that runs that page, but this one says, sometimes things that happened in your life were a bigger deal than you were allowed to think. But it's okay now if you want to say they were a pretty big deal to you, and still are. So I think that is part of what happens when it just made me think of my trajectory of like getting away from my controlling home at 22, joining the Marines, having kind of a, chaotic experience with the Marines, and then having to get myself together again and do some odd jobs, and then start massage school, and then got into my fitness career, got a job at the YMCA, and was able to start offering massage there, but also get experience in fitness, get some training, offer some training, and then continue to progress in that next, another job in fitness, helping open a brand new hospital-owned fitness facility. And then what seemed like the ultimate, so it seemed like I was on this trajectory of getting healthier, getting stronger, getting more energy, building my career, being seen as a competent, respectable person after a childhood of like being discounted over and over and over again, and ridiculed and devalued and all the things that abusive people inflict. And I got this offer from a massive hospital system that owned a wellness center in Michigan. And I went out there and took that job and was making more money than I'd had made up to that point. And it seemed like I was like progressing, going along this healing journey, moving into bigger and better spaces, becoming more and more professional, taking on more responsibility. And I was kind of stronger than I'd ever been, and probably stronger than I am now, just with having interesting availability of strength equipment in the last couple of years. But yeah, so there was a lot going on, and then I started, I was put in a situation where I was working for someone. My boss was someone who was very much like my dad, and didn't give me the benefit of the doubt, and had all these assumptions about my abilities, and told me I wasn't doing my job right. And in hindsight, I realized that they wanted me to be a micromanaging manager, and they didn't want me to be a empowering, uplifting manager, like giving people some leeway, some extra slack on their leash. So I started to doubt myself, and they sent me to like manager training events, and because they told me I was a bad manager, and and all this stuff. And so all of a sudden, like, I'm feeling all of this self-doubt and uncertainty and insecurity that I thought I was like moving past, that I thought I was like outgrowing, because it was associated with abused little insecure me, not the current adult me. And so my healing journey was interrupted by my healing. And I'll read this meme again now that I've given some background. Sometimes things that happen in your life were a bigger deal than you were allowed to think. But it's okay now if you want to say they were a pretty big deal to you, and still are. So what I've learned over the last 4 to 6 years is that the things that were happening to me for the first 22 years of my life were way bigger than I even realized. And my method of coping was to really focus on the positive, and to the point where I was not seeing really what was happening. And it was truly the best way for me to get through it. Like, my body did so well helping me survive what I was experiencing. And so I wouldn't change it. But also my trauma response, so instead of fight or flight most of the time, it was fawn, freeze and fawn. So freeze, like mind would go blank, body would lock up, or fawn, where I would become the caretaker of my abuser and assistant and enabler and all of that. So it was programmed into me to make sure that no one else knew that there was anything going on. So of course, for the up until Michigan, so there's about 10 years ish there, or maybe more. 13 years that I'd been on my journey. And it was my number one priority to make sure everyone believed I could handle it, whatever it was, all the overwhelming things that scared me to death, because it was the first time I was doing it, and I had been told my whole life that I couldn't do it. I couldn't move forward unless I was able to reassure everyone that I could handle it. And so what happens when you keep going down that road, and pretty soon apparently you can't handle it, and you're like, oh man, they've found me out. Like, they're telling me I'm a bad manager. I must, that's probably true, because I've been trying to reassure everyone, keep everyone calm, because I'm assuming that I probably will be bad at this, because my dad told me I was going to be bad at this my whole life, and then it's happening. I'm bad at this, and so then what? And what's really beautiful about your healing being interrupted by your healing is that you're forced to look deeper and see what is under the surface, and what is really at the root of the insecurities and the overwhelm that you have. And not necessarily because there's so much pressure to fix it. and to not be broken anymore, which I thought was kind of the main goal for a lot of my healing. And some people are really impatient with that process, even for me, they're impatient for me to be done healing. But because I need to honor myself and care for myself and love myself in ways that I haven't experienced. Like my dad didn't experience that for himself, and he didn't give his kids that experience. And so where am I going to get it? I have to get it from me. I am the adult in my life that's most responsible for me. And so I have to be my parent. And I have to allow those uncomfortable things to come up. Just like if you've got a kid, hopefully you let them process the things that they're anxious about, that they're scared about, or whatever. Hopefully you're not shutting them down and saying, oh, that's nothing to be afraid of, and not listening to them. Hopefully you are listening to them and allowing them to process and allowing them to find their courage through their fear. So what do you do? What do you do when your healing is interrupted by your healing? And I feel like anyone that has been on an intentional healing journey knows what it's like to feel overwhelm and disillusion and discouragement, and then within all of that to gather hope, to build a new vision of what life could be, and then begin to move forward toward that one step at a time. And so if you've already had the fortitude to pick yourself up from whatever chaos and pain and trauma you have experienced and construct a plan and begin to take steps forward and begin to see progress and begin to overcome and begin to experience a life that you had never experienced before or thought you could never experience again, and then to have that blow up in the middle of the process, and to have to pick yourself back up and gather the pieces of yourself again after that, is extremely monumental. And if you're in that space, you are a rare hero. You are a superhero that is carrying more than anyone should be required to carry. But you are doing the work, and you are the hero of your story. So in those moments, as overwhelming as it is, it's so important to just take a minute and breathe, reevaluate, adjust your plans, because it definitely throws you off course, and keep moving forward. It doesn't mean that your dreams are dead just because it took so much work for you to get the momentum going that you just got interrupted from. Your dreams are still there. Your dreams are still out there. It's still possible for you to experience the life that you hope for. But you may have to take a minute and kind of gather yourself together, reevaluate your timeline, your expectations, make the adjustments that you need to make to move forward, and then start moving forward. One breath at a time, one step at a time, one moment at a time.